I'm actually gonna do this. So last year, in 2017, I had a breast reduction. I actually went to Brazil for my reduction. I left in January 6th, or I left the United States on January 5th, and I got there on January 6th, and that's when I started my whole experience, I guess you can say. It was an adventure for sure. So it started off, everything was okay. Doctors told me the basic, like, oh, you need to lose this much weight in order to do the surgery. And so I said, all right, let's do it. As my surgery got closer, you know, I was like super nervous, super anxious. So I was getting stuff ready for the surgery to do everything. And the doctor's like, all right, like, are you prepared and all stuff? And I was like, yes, I'm ready to do it. So April 17th was my surgery date. I went in for surgery. Super excited. So I used to be a size Z. So if you don't know what that is, it's like, they're huge. They were huge. Now I wear a double D. So I mean, I wake up from surgery and I look down and I was very shocked. It's a big difference once you do a breast reduction. You look down and you don't see those big breasts anymore. You get really shocked. So everything was going okay. And then as I was looking down, I noticed that my nipple on my left side was kind of black. It was darker than the other one. And so I told my doctor, I spent the night in the hospital with a different doctor. So I told that doctor and he said that he would contact my doctor. And I said, okay, sounds good. My doctor hit me back up and he was like, oh, everything's fine. It's dark for the first few days. You'll be fine. I said, okay, great. So fast forward to like 2 weeks after, anyone who's ever had breast reduction or breast augmentation surgeries know that they are so painful. So 2-3 weeks later, I noticed that there was a hole in my breast on the left side, underneath the breast, right by where the stitches were. And so I called my doctor and he was like, okay, it looks like your stitches tore or something, so just come back in the office the next morning and we will go and fix it. Going to his office, we put the stitch back on that had tore, and a few days pass and it opens up again. So I called him and I was like, hey, listen, I'm not doing anything. I literally had straps that would hold my arms down. And I was told him, like, you know, like, I'm wearing the straps you gave me. I'm not doing anything. I hired an assistant to come and help me. Like, she was helping me with food and all this different stuff and taking showers and a whole bunch of things. And so he was like, okay, well, let's take a look at it. Let's see what's going on. I came back the next day. He looked at it and he goes, so it looks like your breast is infected. And I said, okay, so what do we do? And so he's like, well, I'm going to give you some antibiotics, take them for the next 10 days, and we'll check up on it. And I said, okay, sounds great. Sounds like a solid plan. 10 days pass. I've taken the medications, the 10 days pass, and I've noticed that my nipple is still black, and the hole keeps getting bigger. And I was like, what's going on? And it's only on my left side. And so I got to the point where the doctor was like, okay, let's examine it one more time. He examined it, a few days passed, and I'm like trying to reach him. I'm like, hey, like, what are my results? Like, what is my blood result? Like, is everything okay? And he texts me back and he goes, I think you should come into my office. And I said, okay. Like, what could it be? He gets into my office and he explains that in some rare cases, your own body rejects itself. So the nipple that he placed on the breast after he had reduced it is my own. He just cut it a little bit so it sized so it looked good with the breast. On the right side, everything looked good, it looked fine, but on the left side, my body had rejected the nipple. So he was like, there's a big probability that the nipple will fall off. And that came to me as a shock. The only thing we didn't realize is that the nipple fell off about 3 weeks later. So my surgery was in April, so now we're getting into like June-ish. So in June, my nipple fell off. It came off completely, and when it fell off, you could look inside, like there was a hole like this big inside my breast that you could look into. And well, the day it fell off, I remember I looked down and I looked at it and I said, I knew this was gonna happen, but once I looked in the hole, everything, like what's it called? The fatty glands in your breast, it was all dead. It was just all grayish and brownish. It was basically eating itself up. So I got rushed to the hospital and he came in, he was like, I don't know what happened. There's a bacteria or something that got into your body and it's eating the breast away. And I said, so what does that mean? He said, you're gonna lose your left breast. There's nothing I can do about it. So that came to me as a shock. I was like this is just supposed to be a small little surgery just to take him down a bit, and now I'm losing my whole left side. I don't know, it was like a shock to me. I didn't have much time to process it or anything like that. To put either an implant on this left side or something, and in my head I was like, oh no, like that's a new surgery. Like that's not okay. So I lost the left side of my breast. And so the doctor said, you know, there's this new thing we're gonna do, it's called ozone therapy. So basically, I don't know exactly what it is. So I don't know how to explain it. Basically, ozone therapy is the most painful therapy I've ever gone to. So they inject the breast, or whatever is left of it, and with these needles, it's basically just air. It's ozone. So they just put it in the breast, and they put it in your bloodstream. It made me feel nauseous, it made me feel sick. I was constantly at the hospital. I did not like it at all. And so he was like, you know, it's the only way that's gonna properly close itself. At the time, I was only like 17-ish, 18-ish. So I called my mom and I was like, you know, this is what he says, this is what's going on. And she says, okay, well, I'm gonna hire this lady. She's gonna come to you twice a week, and she's gonna do the ozone therapy with you. And I was already doing ozone therapy with the doctor. So I was doing ozone therapy 3 times a week with him and 2 times a week with this lady that my mom hired. So it was 5 times a week, all week long. I did ozone therapy for an hour. It was the most painful thing I've ever been through. So it closed up and the doctor says, okay, well now, you know, we can inject it with, we can either put an implant or we can do lipotransfusion. So basically they would just suck a little bit of fat from like the sides of my tummy and inject it into the breast, into the left side. And I said, okay, that sounds like a solid plan. And so we did it. I go into surgery, they inject it. It was a really, really small incision on that side, so it was like right here, and they just put like a little tube and they just inject everything. So they injected it, and everything was looking really good. So when I got the injection in the breast, it was already, I want to say like September-ish. It was September, and I was leaving in August. I was like, okay, like everything's looking good, the lipo was looking good. It got really, really black and I was really scared. And he said, no, it's normal with lipo, it's supposed to get really dark. And he was like, it's just like any bruises. It gets really bad before it gets any better. And I said, okay, I mean, that makes sense. Bruises get darker before they get lighter. So I was feeling okay. Come August, everything was looking great, it was looking fine. So I was like, all right, sweet, I'm ready to go home, back to the USA. So I was in Brazil for 8 months. I get on the flight to go back to the United States. And so I went from Belo Horizonte to São Paulo, and I was feeling great. São Paulo to Texas, Houston, Texas. In Houston, Texas, I started to feel a little nauseated. And then I went from Houston, Texas to Las Vegas. Las Vegas is Salt Lake City, which is where I live. So from Houston to Las Vegas, I was starting to get really hungry, so I was like, all right, let me get something to eat. Because I was nauseous before and I had thrown up, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm just hungry because I threw everything up. So I was like, all right, let's get something to eat and all stuff. I started to feel these excruciating pains on the sides. I was like, oh my gosh, like it's hurting so bad. I had this really high fever. I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get home. I was like, okay, 4-hour layover. Yeah. So I take my little like neck pillow and I just laid across like the little seats in the airplane, or not in the airplane, in the airport. And I was like, no one talk to me, no one breathe near me, I am going to die. So I'm in this amount of pain, I have this super high fever, and I was like, what if I got yellow fever in Brazil? And I was like, because it was a big possibility. And I'm wondering like, how did I get it? Did I get it on the flight here? Like, it didn't happen in a few hours. I just didn't know what was going on. And so I was sitting there and just in pain and all this stuff, and I'm like praying, like, please God, just take the pain away. Like, I just want to get home. And so I finally got on the plane. Oh no, so I stopped and I bought ibuprofen and I bought melatonin. And so I popped a few of those, slept through the flight, landed in Las Vegas. In Las Vegas, I had a 1 hour layover. I get in Las Vegas and I'm like, okay, I'm almost there. I'm almost home. Like, I can do this. We are so close to the finish line. It's gonna be fine. I get home. That night, I started to feel really, really sick. I started to feel really nauseated and I was just feeling horrible. Horrible, horrible. I looked at my stomach and the sides where I had lipo were huge. Like, they were huge. They were bulging out and I started to cry again. I started to cry. I woke up my dad because my mom was at work, and I woke up my dad and I was like, Dad, like, do you see these? Like, I don't know what's going on. It was red and it was really, really hot. Like, I was like, Dad, it's weird. Like, the only part of my skin that's hot is right here, and I have a fever, but it's burning. And he's like, okay, like, let's go to the hospital and see what it is. So we get to the hospital. I explained to him everything that happened, and then the doctor looks at me. He's like, okay, let's do a quick ultrasound. He's looking on both sides, and he's like, and he turns to me and says, you're gonna have to go into emergency surgery. The lipo that they did in you in Brazil is infected. So they numb me up. He comes back with this blade. So he was like, okay, just turn your head to the side and don't look. So there was 2 nurses in the room. One was holding my head to the side so I wouldn't look, and the other one was pumping stuff out of me. So they have these buckets at the hospital. If you ever go into the emergency room, I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're like on the wall behind you usually. It's like a big bucket, has like numbers on it. It's basically like a measuring cup. So they took that. It's about like this big. And so they cut it, they stick a tube in you, and they start pumping you to get all that fluid out. So they started pumping me. They're like pushing me down and pushing on this side. And I'm like, oh, this is painful. And so they started pushing up. They were like pushing up and like pushing down. And I was like, my scars are still there. And so as they're pushing, you know, I'm seeing this bucket fill up. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm seeing another bucket fill up. And I was like, oh dear Lord, like, they're gonna take everything out of me. Like, I'm going to die. I will have no water in me when I'm done. Except both sides of my body produce 2 buckets filled of pus. Spend the night in the hospital. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling so much better. The pain is gone. My fever is gone. I'm back on antibiotics because I had to be. And I was like, okay, like, things are starting to look up for me. That's why I don't like to talk about my breast reduction. And it's something that was super personal to me. Still is personal, but I had to put out there because it's something that a lot of people ask me about and want to know about. And I'm not ashamed of talking about it. I'm not ashamed that I got a breast reduction. I'm proud of it. I love my scars. I'm not scared of showing them. It's just sometimes the scars mean more to me than they do to someone else, because I know the pain that I went through to get to where I am today, happy about my body, even though I don't have a nipple, technically, because I haven't got my tattoo yet because I'm super lazy and it's expensive. I'm okay with it because for the longest time it was super touchy and I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. I shut everyone out and I just kind of hid to myself. But now I can talk about it because I'm okay with it. And yeah, so that's my story. Deuces.